Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Pebble. And look who's here. It's
Me
our
again.
favorite Scouse guest, my mate, my friend Dan. And we have a really interesting topic today. We're talking about the idea of celebrity and putting people on pedestals and interactions with them. And this came from Dan. So I'm going to let him take the lead because he's a pretty bright fellow. So you go.
Yeah, so basically, it kind of stems back from our sort of original interaction in the sense of you were very sort of surprised slash bemused that somebody, recognized you from a different country and from all those years ago. And you know,
Totally.
to me, that was just like the sort of biggest thing ever. Like I said, I've said it a million times before, but like I say, just having this interaction, I can't tell you how much that has sort of enriched my life and kind of just gone, wow, to be able to kind of tell that person, this way and kind of go, oh my God, like in 1996, 1997, this is kind of like I'm reliving those moments, but now I can actually tell you. And if somebody had told me like all those years ago that that's what would have happened, never would have been able to have believed it. It's just absolutely mind blowing. It really, really is.
And it's absolutely mind blowing, blind moving to me that, making those that anyone would be interested in what I did as a part of them and remember it. So it's so cool on this side as well. And, the reason why we decided we would discuss it here on The Pebble is we've talked about at the beginning of The Pebble that you don't have to be a celebrity per se to make an impact. And yet, I don't consider myself a celebrity. And yet, to you, in some way, I was. But either way, it was beautiful and moving to me to know that even in the slightest way, something that I did made an impact.
Mm,
And it goes to show that whatever it is you do, like in this case, it was me doing some voiceover, you don't know the impact, right, of things that you do sometimes. And
yeah,
that's really what the Pebble is about. And you were saying tonight you're going to see theater, my
that's right.
hometown.
And actually, it kind of leads on to what I was going to say with you not, with you saying that you don't get to kind of like get that instant sort of reaction from somebody. Whereas obviously when you go to the theatre, live theatre, you get that interaction with, the audience. And then also sometimes, and I do like to do stage door when I can, sometimes you do get that, interaction with, the people who've been on stage. I never ever take it for granted. It is a privilege and it's not a right. And I think with the sort of celebrity kind of like status that comes with, certain shows. I mean, I'm going to see The Bodyguard for like the 38th time tonight, and we've got Melody Thornton, who used to be in the Pussycat Dolls, and it is surreal. You kind of like sort of getting to have these interactions with people that you think, oh my god, I'll never get to meet them. And I'm quite a veteran of like the stage door now, so I'm kind of like not nonchalant, but um I appreciate it so much more. And like I say, I never take it for granted because it's not something that you should always expect. And I do tend to kind of like stand back a bit, let everybody else have their go and all of that as well, because for some people that's their first time ever, getting to interact with somebody. So, like I say, you just kind of learn the etiquette over the years, and you just kind of let people kind of like do their thing. Sometimes people are in a rush and they don't want to stop, and you just let them go because, again, you don't want to kind of like cross those boundaries and, ruin something that, you know, potentially a lot of people kind of enjoy doing, myself included. You'd never want to kind of like jeopardize that. I
Yeah.
have always cringed sometimes as well when I've seen people literally chase people down the streets, and I'm kind of like, don't be that person.
No. You
Absolutely don't
never
be that person.
know what their that night might be for them. You never know if they have a sick kid that they're running home to or whatever. And I've seen people yell at them and say, "Oh, you're ungrateful," or whatever.
Yeah.
And they may have the night before stayed, an hour and thanked every single person, but that night, their babysitter's waiting, and if they don't get home, it's an extra hour charge, or that the babysitter may have to leave. You just never know what's going on in their real world behind the mask of being an actor or a professional, right?
Exactly. And I completely understand that. I know the drill. And at the end of the day, I'm just grateful, like I say, for any kind of like interaction you do kind of like get. And,
You're
I
lovely.
also understand that, they have lives outside. They're not even obliged to stop. Once they sign out of the theatre, that's it. Like I say, it doesn't buying a theatre ticket doesn't entitle you to a meet and greet,
Right.
and I think sometimes I do cringe when people actually go onto Twitter and they say this and they say that, and I'm kind of like, but you don't understand, what may be going on that you're not privy to. So for you to kind of like say, "Oh, I waited for an hour and you never turned up," or sometimes, some of the things that you read online, and you just kind of think, be very mindful when you're actually writing these things, because or when they're saying, oh, so and so, you know is rubbish or whatever, and you think
Mm,
that someone's going to read that, and I think it's just
right.
about being mindful that we don't own these people. They don't owe us anything, other
And
than
I
what,
appreciate that. Yeah.
yeah, other than what they do on stage. Once that's over, you don't get to kind of like dictate what you think they should do, or not do, and I think that, you just have to kind of appreciate the fact that these things are here at the moment, and we didn't have them for a while, obviously, with the pandemic,
Yeah.
so why would you want to kind of like jeopardize that? So I think, it's just about remembering that, you know there are boundaries, and you just must remember not to kind of like overstep them, because these people are human as well, and they've got lives outside. So yeah.
I remember before I did a full Equity House show of 8 shows a week, and I was always like, "Oh, I will stay for it. I would stay for everybody. I would stay for as long as," and I've never done a role in which people wanted me to. So let me just say that. But I, having done that, I remember thinking it's exhausting. And when you, especially if you have a big period piece and a lot of makeup and a lot of wigs, I, I'm not saying I necessarily wouldn't. I just know that I realized it's a lot and you're tired,
Yeah.
and if you've done a 3-hour show, so it's already almost 11 before you start the come down, and so it's 11:30. And yes, you want to honor the people who have been waiting for you, but if it's, you know, 30, 40 people, it could be 12:30, 1 a.m. before you're done. And and if you have to come back the next day, especially if that's a Friday night and you have a Saturday matinee, and that means 2 show day, I don't think if you aren't in the business, you don't realize just how much of an ask that is, right?
Yeah.
Because they have to be there for, say, an 11 o'clock call. And so if they're leaving at 1 and they're getting, home at 1:30, and they have to be there at 11 to
Yeah.
do 2 shows and rest. That's a lot, and
Yeah.
things that even I didn't know, even as a young actress, because I had never done an 8-show week. That's a lot. And so it's just those kind of things that we don't even realize that we're not. It's you don't know what you don't know, right? So it seems so like, oh, come on, man, like you only have to work at night. What's it such a big deal to ask
No,
you
people
to
don't understand. At the end of the day,
right,
the rehearsals, that just because the show starts at 7:30, they don't just roll in at like 6 o'clock. They've probably been there all afternoon. Sometimes
right?
you
Because
don't
a lot
know.
of times, right, you're already rehearsing the next show. A lot of times it's very true, especially if you're in a rep company.
Yeah.
um and it's something I've thought a great deal about too, that when you spoke of you don't own these people, and it's been a big issue in the last couple of years with certain celebrities that
Mm.
who came up young and were very, very popular, and then they had breakdowns in front of the whole world, and they were chased by paparazzi and such. But also just not even ones that necessarily broke down in front of us, but we think because we know their names, we know their faces, that we know them. And I
Yeah.
think that must be such an awkward way to walk through the world, that they can walk into any room and everyone knows who they are. Even if they don't, it's like having a name tag on all the time, and
I just
everyone
thought of
else.
that word. Sorry to interrupt,
No,
but
go ahead.
parasocial. That's the word I was
Oh,
thinking.
but yeah, okay.
So
Yeah,
where people, like when you said about people knowing these people, but you don't really know them personally, you know of them. I
right.
would like to say I know of somebody, but I don't know like them sort of like completely, because
Exactly.
I like to think that I'm not deluded and that, I can kind of understand where all the boundaries are and all of that sort of thing. Like I said before, I kind of, if someone looks like they're in a hurry, I'm not going to stop them,
Right.
because and I appreciate that people have got trains to catch sometimes and, stuff going on and stuff like that. And if you're like me, if I see a show like a million times, it doesn't really matter anyway because I'll probably just catch them the next time.
Exactly. Well, it's like I can say I met Brendan Fraser in 1997. I don't know him, right? I'm not going to suddenly say, "Oh yeah, I know Brendan Fraser. I met him, 26 years ago at 25 years ago at a thing at my acting school." He wouldn't know me from a food processor, okay. Like but that's the thing, is we have this way of thinking because we watch them on TV show, even if we watch them in an award show, when we see them being very emotive, and we feel them and we feel compelled by them, that we still don't know them, right? We know of their journey, we know of their story, but we don't know them, but we feel some possession over that story, right? We feel a
Well,
party of it.
yeah. Well, it's like the accessibility thing. Obviously, like these days with like social media, there are now ways, like, years ago, back in the day, you'd have to write to a PO box number,
Yeah.
fan mail and all of that. Now you can just, tweet somebody or DM them and stuff like that. The sort of the level of accessibility that you have with people, I mean, yeah, it's just, and again, I always think to myself, personally, I can't speak for anybody else, but I'm always like really anxious, thinking to myself, oh my God, I hope I'm not bothering this person. Again, I try to be respectful and, not bombard people with stuff. I mean, I get very passionate, as you know, about lots of different things, and that's where that comes, it comes from a good place. But I also like to think that I know when to kind of like tone it down and not to go sort of overboard. Like I say, sometimes when you're at stage door, you do kind of sometimes see very sort of enthusiastic fun, which is great. But sometimes you do kind of think, yeah, just let them get out the door
Yeah.
first, let them, and that sort of thing. I personally wouldn't go all in. Like I say, I've seen it in the past where people have literally like jumped on people, and I'm kind of a bit like, just give them, that space, because that's quite intimidating. Coming out, especially if like you said, if you're tired, and yeah. So, but like I say, that it comes with like awareness and things like that. And I think sometimes for some people, I can understand, the excitement and stuff like that. And sometimes it does kind of like take over. But you have to remember that these people are, they're human just like us. And they also need that kind of respect with the boundaries.
I think you're very respectful. I mean, when we first started conversing over my lives and such, you were constantly like, I don't want to, take off topic, but I want you to know how much I respect and you did this or something when we were you were always very respectful. And I personally think that it comes partly from the amount of respect the person has for themselves.
Mm,
And I think the more grounded you are and the more you respect yourself and have comfort in yourself, the less you over over place them in some kind of like, I have to have this from them, right?
yeah, that's
You
right.
you want to tell them how much you appreciate them and thank them for their performance, and and you like signatures and collect them, and that's great, but you don't. I think the reason why you don't feel the need to, is because you do see them still as a human,
Of
and
course.
you're human, and there's an equity there. I think a lot of times people who do that, honestly, it's maybe it's about them, that maybe
Mm,
they don't have enough respect in themselves to equate themselves to that person. They don't see them as a human in a sense. And so they got to have it, right? Like it's like
yeah.
it's almost too much of a need because they're not human. They're something other.
Will you elevate somebody to such a level? I mean, like I say, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm like inside, I'm like screaming, like, "Oh my god!"
Oh,
But
it
you put a lid on it, because at the end of the day, you compartmentalize. Like I say,
was
what
right there. I would be like, I
but
don't
that's how. But that's how.
see.
And you might laugh at this, but that's how I feel about you. And I would just be like, "Oh my god!" Just like, no, honestly. And I know you find that really, really hard to. I think because I think we're so sort of like the whole like society conditions you. These people need to be famous, famous. If they're not famous, famous, why are you interested in them? That sort of thing. I kind of get that impression that and it takes all sorts, you know. So, but like I say, and or like yourself, Tiffany Grant. Oh my God, I just feel like, oh my God.
Well, and see, that's funny because I feel like Tiffany and Jessica and Amanda are like so on a different plane than I am too. Like they're like,
Yeah, but I think if you'd kind of like stayed in the industry, in the anime dubbing industry, and you'd carried on, I mean, not saying, like I say, to me, I still hold you in that kind of high regards,
thank
because you were part of that
yeah,
wave.
I'd love to go to acting school. So that's why
Yeah,
I
no,
stopped.
and like I say, and I, for purely
Yeah,
selfish
that
reasons.
worked out. Ba-bum-bum.
Yeah, purely selfish reasons. I do wish, oh, it would have been great if you'd have like stayed and done more and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you've got to do what's right for you and stuff like that. But even though you didn't do like loads and loads and loads of titles like they've done, I still hold the ones that you did do in sort of very high regard. So that to me is just part of your legacy in
Well,
this crazy world,
thank you.
of anime. And like I say, those lines that you got were just completely iconic. And I thought like when I first started talking to you, and I thought I'm not going to do the crazy thing and say, "Oh, can you say this line for me?" It's just like no, but um,
I'll have to rewatch. So I've got to get them on DVD because I don't even have a VCR player anymore.
yeah, well, Skatebound Decker is actually on DVD. I've actually got the DVD, and I found out recently that Demon Sentry, um, Scoodon was supposed to be released on DVD as well, but for some reason, ADV didn't actually do it. So I think that was possibly 2003. But I
Yeah.
only found out because recently because I looked on uh, Anime News Network, which is like my Bible, find out all kind of things that I need to know. Um, so yeah, actually there was a few titles that they were supposed to release on DVD, but they never actually got round to it. So I'm not sure what happened there. But yeah, there's quite a few of them that made it to DVD. So yeah,
Well, this has been a fun one. I liked this. This was a
yeah,
good discussion. About because I think it is important to kind of bring it some of the celebrity kind of discussions down to earth a little. So, thank you to my Scouse friend. Did I say it right? Scouse,
you
like
did,
house Scouse.
yeah, basically, yeah.
With my Texas accent, of course.
Yeah.
And I thank you for being my regular guest, and thank you guys for watching The Pebble. And yet another time, or if this is your first time, then welcome. And you got to see my international guest. And
Oh, yeah.
yes, yes. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would love for you to follow along and join us again. And you can do that most easily by, you know what I'm going to say, press the subscribe button. And everyone, please have a great day. Thank you.